We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I'm back, bitches. That still has a nice beat to it. Still seated twerking to bounce. New year, and that song still has a vibe in 2025. Also, it's time for a new intro. I am in with a podcast change. I added the F.A.A.F.O to it, but I'm back with the same formula that has allowed me to be successful in the past. I've set realistic intention. I plan on being present and following through, but I still intend to remain petty and hold grudges. Not all intentions need to be positive. Also, I will be unengaged and unbothered by people and things in my life that do not serve me. That means parasitic people, unsolicited judgments, biased newspapers, and mainstream banks. I will not apologize for maintaining my mental peace. Happy and unbothered and at peace because I'm at unbothered. All day, every day, being unbothered is my way. Join me.
To my homegirl, Laquita J. Elmore, Najee. Lift every chair and swing till all them white folks scream. Thought y'all could run up on our black king. I'm glad the squad pulled up, dedicated to Nuck if you buck. May it resound loud as the rolling sea. Throw your hats high in the air until Unc comes with the chair. Swim the seas until our cousins come and they rescue me. Let this be a lesson to y'all. Remember the Montgomery Brawl, where white folks fucked around and they found out.
I firmly believe that there are going to be many white hat moments. It's like, who's going to be throwing the white hat? It's not going to be just the riverboat captains. It's going to be just regular people. And that song is going to continue into the next 4 years in some way, shape, or form. But right after, I'm recording this on the first Sunday of January 2025. We're coming up on the 4th anniversary of the riots in Washington, D.C., and we're staring down the barrel of, and that's apropos, we're staring down the barrel of another chump administration. I've looked over my YouTube channel at the comments as I've figuring out how to create video content, potentially using shorts and YouTube, and I stumbled upon, how dare you call him chump? Well, now I'm just going to keep his MFing name out of my mouth because he's threatening, as a punk that he is, to sue content creators that speak ill of him. Cool, I don't have to talk about you. No problem. And I'm sure there are going to be other people that are going to risk doing the same, but I ain't got 15 mil large to give you like ABC did, so it's not even worth it, girl. But anyways, I allude to why I'm talking about luck and the new right after the new year is because it stems from a picture that I discussed with my good friend and my cousin. I did not understand the picture. I had made my own black eyed peas this year on the same tradition as I had eaten them as a kid. I remember eating them plus or minus white rice, plus or minus ham hocks, pork jows, plus or minus sausage. And I did not understand the significance of it. I knew it meant luck, but I didn't know to the extent of where the tradition stemmed from and how far it went back. Just like everything with African Americans, especially in the South, with that history, I just did a tradition and I did not know the significance of it. But I also, now I am more snarky because social media makes you think that everybody's a comedian and that's what everybody wants to show off their culinary chops. But there was also this picture that a former colleague of mine had posted. And as I said, I didn't understand it. It was black eyed peas on top of something. I don't know if it was cornbread, but I saw some okra and some other shit in it. And I was just really confused. I was like, where did it do that at? I had to go down the rabbit hole because it is not, even with the tradition of pork and beans and something else that the English do, every authentic West African recipe for black eyed peas does not have greens in it. The protein source, because actually black eyed peas is traditionally, it is a great source of clean protein. Just so you know, animal protein minus the fat. We add the fat when we use smoked meats, ham hocks and such to add the taste to it. But what does the meal actually traditionally look like? I also saw a request online from a Canadian because they said that, it's not our tradition in the Great North, whatever. This is not a part of our tradition. I'm asking for a friend for some recipes. I wanted to answer her back. If they look like you, 9 times out of 10, girl, you cannot trust that recipe. That is mean, but it's also factual. Because the other trash recipes look like that one from a colleague's picture about black eyed peas with some green shit mixed in with it. That's not authentic black eyed peas, and y'all are missing the point. The point is the tradition started in West Africa because it was black eyed peas, cow peas, or the similar are a staple in the traditional African diet. We brought it over here in the transatlantic slave trade and voyage. It was used as feed for livestock, and we began to use it twofold. Number one, even though it was probably the beans and the fodder was used for livestock, we can make anything taste good. Black African Americans. And we ate it in Africa anyway. So there. During the Civil War, when Sherman was burning up everything and raising and cutting a path from Savannah all the way back up to the Mason-Dixon line, they left fields and fields of black eyed peas alone, because it was seen as feed for animals. The Confederate soldiers basically survived off of that, and it was a food that we had already been eating anyways. We brought it with us from Africa, so it was deemed to be good luck, and we ate it in celebration of Emancipation Day, even though January 1st, 1863. But even though the slaves in Texas didn't know until Juneteenth, 2-3 years later, that they had been set free. But I digress. The tradition continued where you had it to at least eat 365 black eyed peas, which signify coins and luck throughout the new year. Collard greens, a completely separate dish, which signifies paper money, and cornbread, which signifies gold. All of this is considered luck, prosperity, wealth into the new year. You eat this traditional meal in celebration and to claim these things in the new year. But our recipes and again our traditions have been bastardized and made to either make a mockery of the tradition or make a mockery of us. But it is deep into our tradition. They neglect to tell you that Confederate soldiers actually did survive whole brutal winters over, because a pot of black eyed peas will make it all right. As I said, a meal within itself. Clean proteins and other nutrients. Cooked right, seasoned right, it's a great meal. And if you add those other two things, you get your vitamin C and also your fat. You talk about a balanced meal, and if it's cooked right and seasoned right, that's good. It's actually all right with me. But don't be mixing shit together, because what I saw online don't make any sense. No, okra doesn't belong in black eyed peas. But I think in some tradition, okra can also mean luck, and separately, and as a part of gumbo and other casseroles, that makes sense. But it does not make sense with black eyed peas. And no traditional West African recipes call for okra or kale or any other type of green. Arugula I saw in one. Spring greens I saw in one. It doesn't cause for any of that to be mixed up with the black eyed peas, but can be enjoyed separately from the black eyed peas. And whatever, I tell this to my colleague, whose name I'm not going to mention because I don't have her permission to even mention her name. Whoever, and that whatever that bread was did not look like traditional cornbread. It actually looked like either some type of weird zucchini or acorn bread. That's not what we eat with our black eyed peas. Leave out the okra, leave off the acorn or zucchini bread. Those things can be enjoyed separately, but not as a part of the traditional pot of black eyed peas that portends wealth and prosperity in the new year if you eat at least 365 of them beans. I'm just saying, follow tradition, don't bastardize it, because you're just going to make me mad. For cultural appropriation gone bad, child. New year, more books. And welcome to the part of the show F.A.A.F.O has a fro is reading. This is getting back to the roots of why I started the podcast. I started the podcast while I was in Kentucky and I was reading. I was using reading as something to entertain myself, because where I was staying, I didn't feel safe, going out. It was more like another Oregon sitch, but I discovered podcasts, and I discovered not only a way to entertain myself, but also share it with other people that were interested in what I was interested in. So I basically recapped and shared my opinions on Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower last couple of segments. I endeavor to continue on and give my opinion on Parable of the Talent, which is the second iteration in that series. She passed away before she could complete the third, but I'm not sure. There may be some notes that survived her fall in the early aughts, but who knows? I wonder if her estate would be interested in turning it, probably both, into either like a mini series or made for TV movie. The streaming services should be interested. I don't know if they would be if they would actually be brave enough in the upcoming generation, the upcoming administration, that takes any criticism, because they are privileged, but they are fragile. But I digress. I plan on also getting back into Stephen King, and hopefully I'll be able to read and break down more with my cousin Viva on upcoming episodes. But I figured, since I have the upcoming week off and I wanted to get this episode out either before or on January 6th, I needed to start getting into the book. And I did some background work. I didn't realize just how many books Stephen King had actually written over the last, 40 years. And I didn't realize, even until I was today years old, when I realized, for some reason, I did not know that Stephen King wrote Shawshank Redemption. Who knew? And that means he made a grip not only on the book, but also on rights to the movie, selling rights to the movie. How dope is that? He also, this book that I'm also going to be breaking down with my cousin, Holly, this is one in a multi-book series that he has written over the last decade. And the protagonist in the book is a Holly, it's not Doll. What's this child's name? This is Holly Gibney. She's middle-aged female. I think she probably is white, but she is a detective, a PI of sorts. I'm like, she's right along my swerve. We meet her, we're introduced to her because she is just getting over and processing the death of her MAGA maggot mother, Charlotte, on her Zoom funeral. It says in the book that Charlotte Gibney is a helicopter mom of sorts, and she also is smothering, can't cook because their last Christmas meal was dried turkey and lumpy potatoes. But she also was a COVID denier up until the end. Went to rallies, protesting the wearing of masks, protesting even the existence of COVID, as they were probably putting her to shut her ass up on a respirator. I can't imagine being her nurse and respiratory therapist and her doctor, and she's looking at them dead in the face and saying, "You're lying to me," as she is freaking dying. I hope she went like Blanche Devereaux said of her belated mother-in-law. I hope it was slow and painful, because people that are that ignorant deserve a painful death. But we are introduced to her as she takes on a case of Penelope Dow. This is in 2021. And Penelope Dow, or Penny Dow's daughter, Bonnie, goes missing from the Jet place. It's like a Jet quick serve. It's a gas station that's right down the street on Red Bank Avenue from the college. But it's a little bit further than that. She picks up on the anxiety of this woman, gets her off the phone, and the way that it colors her interaction with her mother, it colors the interaction with Penny. Because it's this delay and her interaction and her picking up on the anxiety. I think it not only reminds her from her contentious relationship with her now deceased mother, but also the delay in trying to distance herself and set up boundaries is going to delay in finding Bonnie. At this point, I have not Googled and have not jumped ahead, but but she had already been, it's already like the middle of July. Penny's daughter, Bonnie, has been missing for weeks now. If you haven't gotten any leads within the first 48 hours, the likelihood of you finding them alive is actually becomes very much low. But I have a feeling the Harrises, which are the antagonists in the book, the antagonists are what's his name? Emma and Ronald Harris. They actually are lit and life sciences professors at the local college. They've been perfecting their craft of kidnapping and killing since the early part of 2012 when they kidnapped a much younger writer in residence, a co-worker in their own college. He happens to be Hispanic, had relative success with his first novel. He's there basically on a part-time basis, and they look like they are tenured professors, semi-retired. But they are murderers, or at least kidnappers. I don't know if we are not I'm only 30 some odd pages in. I don't know what happened to Jorge. All I know is they have drugged him. He's down in their basement in a cage, and they make him eat raw liver. Maybe, I don't know if it's an animal or calf liver, or was it the liver of another kidnapped victim before? I just realized that. Was it also the liver of a kidnapped victim before him? Who knows? But they are into trap, torture, kill, I think. Not like the BTK killer, but they are trapping them and torturing him by he can't leave, subjecting him and torturing him with withholding food and water, and making him eat raw organs. Who does that? but I have a feeling we're going to find out later. As I said, I'm only 33 pages in. And I think that is also testament of what's going to be what happened to all of these victims. And in the decades since they have been kidnapping, trapping, and what actually are they killing them? We're not finding any bodies. Are they burning them up, or are they getting subsequent victims to actually eat the bodies, which is freaking crazy to me. And it goes to the twist and the depravity that is part of Stephen King's whole MO. But this book deviates from his usual MO. I actually was able to look this up. He reveals who the villains are right in, it's like the first chapter of this book. We get introduced to the Harrises when they kidnap and cage Jorge. But in his other books, like Firestarter, Salem's Lot, The Stand, except for The Stand, because we're introduced to Randall Flagg, who starts off as just an everyman villain. The Harrises resemble the everyman villain of that previous book, but that's not the usual MO in books like The Shining, Pet Sematary, Dolores Claiborne. Stephen King has written other books and collabed with his son in subsequent books in between years, but having the villain or the antagonist revealed at the beginning of the book is a departure from his usual modus operandi. But I'm enjoying it so far. It took me a minute to actually calm down enough to be able to start reading it, but I'm glad I'm reading it in spite of those my initial starts and stops. What I'll probably do, since I do have the whole week off, and I won't be up to any big back shenanigans because it's too freaking cold to be outside. I'll probably alternate between this book of Stephen King's Holly and Octavia Butler's book, Parable of the Talent. One is Afrofuturism, and other one is just Stephen King's crazyism. So, who knows? You may get a double whammy from both next week. Stay tuned. Here's the story of a producer who loved the reality royals. All had weaves like each other, but should have invested in God as lens. This is a story of other shady podcasters and YouTube influencers, all black but different audience sizes, yet with sus opinions. One day I decided and had more than a hunch. The stars were more interests appearing like they had it all together, but really were a messy bunch. The shady bunch. The shady bunch. If turning up for checks is worth being part of the shady bunch. I foresee a lot of music in the upcoming episodes because rewriting old classics is what is making me happy as of late. But there you go. In this part of the episode, I am going to be talking about reality TV, and I'm going to be doing a podcast roundup. I am happy to report that Kid Fury from The Read seems to be in a better mental space this week. The episode that I listened to, because the last two episodes of that particular podcast are the best parts 1 and 2 are like the best of 2024. But the previous one that I've listened to this week, he and Chrissle, who is just enjoying being a dog mom, and now she's at the point where she can't even imagine what she did when she just lived alone or before her dog Lanie came on the picture. And it's just really cute. They talk about the dog doing moonwalking backwards because she was trying to get her food. How she wants to go outside and wants to French kiss her all the time. The dog, mind you, is only a couple of months old, and sounds like she is a big puffball, and how the dog actually has a better wardrobe than most humans and don't work nowhere, which I think is also hilarious. So I put the link to that podcast in the notes, and I think you guys will enjoy it. Also, they do a great breakdown of Lil Wayne basically saying there is no beef between him and Kendrick Lamar, even though Kendrick actually is performing at the Super Bowl in New Orleans. And he says he was disappointed, but he says just kill it. Lil Wayne is known to love football. I'm sure he's going to be completely paying attention to whomever is actually the game, as well as the performance itself. They also made a point that he was supposed to have come up with some diss track, but that diss track was AI written, and it was whack. And which Lil Wayne basically dispelled. He's like, I don't think Lil Wayne wants that smoke. He is known for his lyricists. He's been on some of the greatest bops of this century, and the last century. But at the same time, he don't want that Kendrick Lamar smoke. He don't want to be the Drake of it all. And I don't think he can be. And also, it seems like the people that had the most to say about Lil Wayne not representing New Orleans in the Super Bowl, meaning Birdman, Drake, and the Barbs. Who are the Barbs? That's it's not Little Kim. It is the Trinidadian. I'm glad nobody listens to Queen Barb Radio. I can't even think of her name. I know she's married to a pedophile, but that neither goes here nor there. Don't come after me. I just can't remember this lady's name, but all her beef is actually with Rock Nation and not Kendrick Lamar. That's why they got mad, because Rock Nation actually runs the halftime show now. Birdman has beef with somebody else, and again, it's not Kendrick Lamar. And also, Drake does have a beef with Kendrick Lamar, but the diss track was funny, and actually, Kendrick Lamar is capitalizing with dropped a whole other album, and is going on tour, sold out. So there you go. I'm sure that the Reed's audience will think that they have done a better job at not only breaking down the lyrics, Kendrick Lamar's lyrics, but also the non-beef between Little Tunechi, which is Lil Wayne, and Kendrick Lamar. I don't have too much to say about Demetria Lucas because she's now back in the country and is probably going on hiatus until after the election or the inauguration. She's working on a whole bunch of different things and merch drops. Stay tuned for that. Usually it sells out evidently in just a few hours. Also, her See Some World Tour in Cape Town. The tickets for that or places for that have gone on sale, and I'm probably sure that's sold out for April 2025. The links to that show or to Ratchet and Respectful will also be in the podcast notes. So why Shady Bunch 2.0? What inspired my take on that jingle or the opening to the 70s classic Brady Bunch? Well, Carlos King. I am an avid listener of Reality with the King, and when I listen to these shows, I start thinking of stuff. I was like, he absolutely only and avidly talks about all the Real Housewives. Granted, he is formerly a producer of Real Housewives of Atlanta and Real Housewives of Jersey. Famously produced, I believe, 6 or 7 seasons before he had his own production company and created several number one shows on the OWN network. And competing influencer, YouTuber, podcaster, this is Kimfire, pointed out the reason why he talks about those other reality shows, not just because he's respectful and he says he loves all the girls, but he also knows that the listening audience and who he talks to and about is audience is much, much broader than the listening and devoted audience, even with all of his shows. That makes sense. That makes business sense. I get it. But I was like, it's just weird. Why doesn't he talk about his show? So then I said, oh, okay, now I get why he doesn't talk about his show. Because some of the reality stars can be a little douchey. Aikisha, I don't think her name Williams. I think that's SoGucci's last name. Colon. Colon. It makes sense. It's intestines. It's chitlins, I guess, because she did some dirty-ish. In the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of chatter that I've actually missed because I am not on social media like that. I just found out that Remy Ma and Papoose are separating. The last several months of off-screen drama involving Carlos King, I think initially started with Monique Samuels running her mouth after the wrap of not just with Love and Marriage DC, because she didn't come back for the second season, but they also did another show, and then she didn't call anybody's name specifically, but she basically made some statement of how unorganized, I think that show was, as well as the follow-up show was. There may have been some issues with pay, etc. What we have found out that Monique Samuels, even before, while she was married to Chris Samuel, the former, I think he was a linebacker of the Washington Commanders, and he and his mother, or her former mother-in-law, always thought her as a phony gold digger. But what I saw was she controlled every aspect of, tried to, of all 4 or 5 homes, Chris, those kids, really regimented, and she had a brand or a persona that she wanted to portray. And I think, even though she wasn't a producer, she had her way and what she wanted and how she wanted her narrative to be portrayed. And the producers at Kingdom Reign Productions were like, hell no, girl, we're going to do it this way. And that's why she cried unorganized, because it probably wasn't along what her production schedule and shot caller was, and because your talent didn't work that way. I also suspect, and that's what I also suspect, how is it really going with Messy Melanie, formerly Melanie Holt, being a producer of the show? Melanie seems to be on some get back ish. I don't think she is about that life of portraying anybody in a positive light or any resolution. That's why I'm getting tired, and why Love and Marriage Huntsville is getting too messy for me. Because it seems like there's a bunch of back and forth biting. Martell Holt is a toxic son of a bitch. That Marceau, and even now his brother Maurice, who is got caught up and rolling dirty in Huntsville. And she's pointing out and going around and being messy to every other cast member except for him. And she refuses to talk to Kimmy, who is Maurice's wife. And she really wouldn't take ownership of anything she said or thought with Maurice when they actually was confronted. It's not editing. You just look messy. And there's no resolution. No, as an audience member, I'm basically changing what my entertainment value was. I can't evaluate. I'm going to stick my commentary for the show on what I see. I don't know the fourth wall. I don't know about editing. All I know is if you don't do dumb shit, they're not going to put dumb shit on the screen. You have to also don't overstep your boundaries. You're the talent. You need to be like Nene Leakes. You need your water and your check. You show up, you do your job, you clock out, and they pay you. If everybody, all these reality stars basically had that mantra and don't be so extra, I think they won't rise up and implode before they can get their bag for the show and bigger bag that comes with the promotion because the influence of being on the show. And that's why I bring up Monique. Y'all know, right after she left Real, or while she was probably taping the season 5, even with Candians, they got in that fight, and Candians then pressed charges. You know, she was trying to promote Not for Lazy Mom, and then she had some music, but then there was a time that she stepped away. She said she was never ever going to come back to reality TV. Then she popped back up in the DC, Love and Marriage DC, and then, but she won't do things like House of Villains and some other Bravo TV. I think she's basically talked herself out of her own blessings, and maybe rightly so, or she got a big enough settlement from her divorce from Chris Samuels that she really doesn't have to worry about money. But she's going to learn very quickly. You're not anything if you're not really attached to these shows. And if you start drinking your own Kool-Aid and you think you're bigger than your role on the reality TV, instead of leaning into that role, but you don't want to really present the messiness, which is the reality of your life, then what is that going to mean? Who are you outside of? Or if you do have a strong sense of self and you really don't need reality TV, then more power to you. I just don't, if I found something that I was absolutely good at, because some of these reality stars are reality TV gold because they're so messy. Look at Lanie, what's her name? Latrice, who actually has goddess lens, and Cliff, who I think is a misogynistic douchebag. It works for them. She knows he's a douchebag and she's willing, and her high ass voice, but her perfect weave and wigs, she's making the most of the bag, but she already had the bag. Latrice of the Bell Collective was balling out even before that show started. The same thing, but she's a doctor now. Marie, reality TV gold. Her life is messy. Somebody just shot up her house with the AK. Girl, AK or AR, and they got it on the ring cam. She is reality TV gold. She shows up with her finger waves and her big BBL, not booty, and just is who she is. Leans into it, collects her check, and then remodels her mental health spots. I ain't mad at it. Been truthful, don't seem to be hiding anything, and shows up and shows out. Those other ones, not so much. Then I started wondering, the real beef has come. Carlos King is actually now suing one of his former stars on his show, SoGucci Williams. Her name is Sopia, blah, 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 Williams. She's married to Pigtail Boy, JJ. That whole interaction or whole dynamic between Selena, SoGucci, and JJ, I didn't really understand. And then I was looking at, Sopia is a pretty woman. And I also looked at his ex-wife, Selena. The last episode, and previous to this, was it last year, SoGucci and Selena get into a major beef. And she kept popping up this year. She popped up in New Orleans, and it was obvious that JJ didn't want her around. And it was just, the whole dynamic was weird. And I felt that we weren't getting the whole story. Then we know that there was a restraining order. The girls showed up on last year's reunion. There was tension between the new wife, SoGucci, and Selena. That culminated until them getting into a fight where they could not film together because they were suing each other. And then come to find out, Selena has an amazing story. Evidently, Latrice and her messy ass suggested Selena actually originally to be on the show. It sounds like she declined, and then it went to getting her ex-husband JJ, and therefore SoGucci. SoGucci ended up being a breakout star. What didn't make any sense was nobody was being factual of the dynamics between their families. Selena's story is she actually had a reoccurrence role on some show called Bring It. I don't even know what network that came on. Had her first child at 14. He died when he was just a few years old. She married JJ when she was 18 and had all of those kids. He basically was a controlling, mentally and physically abusive jerk. I have not found it yet, but it may or may not have been confirmed that he may have started his relationship with SoGucci even before he was divorced from Selena. He is mad at Selena because she got tired of the BS. She left him and then they got divorced. He may or may not have taken care of his kids. It may or may not. And I think he also had a tenuous relationship with his daughters, because rightly so, they took their mother's side over him. She basically verbalized that he was so controlling. He tried to alienate her from her friends and family. He wouldn't even let her have a cell phone, while he actually always had a cell phone and was using it to cheat on her and to meet up with other women. He treated her like a dog. Because he's a toxic male, he thought he could actually continue to do that, and he demanded his daughters to basically support him at all costs. He seems to me wants to come off as a jokey, god darn it, funny guy. Can't hardly understand him in what I think Willie was funny because he said he couldn't understand Cliff. I can hardly understand JJ and his pigtail wearing ass. And he looks like a big hog now. Maybe back in the day he was player with the Versace shirts like a broke ass Puff Daddy. But at the same time, we see where Puff Daddy is right now, and his woman abusing ways. But I digress. It seems that SoGucci was stuck in the middle, because for her to be on this show, that story needs to be told. But I don't think JJ and his controlling butt did not want that story to be told. And Carlos King's ass, shady ass, or do you not want her on the show and you do not want her to talk to Selena because you're trying to hide something? Hell yeah, that bitch is trying to hide something. He's trying to hide the fact of the abuse, controlling. He don't want the audience to know that. He don't want SoGucci to know that. He probably doesn't want his people to realize that his lack of relationship with his kids are because he's trying to control the entire situation. And to the extent she's probably a hostage herself, and maybe or maybe not, still is in some way, shape, or form still controlled by this man that she says she's dedicated the better part of the last decade to her life. She's trying to find the balance and also trying to show up and get paid on the show, but she knows that she still has to go home to his fat back neck. And how dare you demand that I actually do the job that I'm contracted for? That's why, number one, keep blaming production on edit. Don't do stupid shit and we won't have to see it on camera. That's number one. And you are the talent. You are on a reality show. We don't want to see this manufactured production crap because that doesn't work. We saw it on Potomac. It almost ended that show. We saw it somewhat on Jersey and people not wanting to film with each other. That doesn't work because it'll put you on pause for 2 years. Shit, we saw it on Real Housewives of Atlanta. Got put on pause for 2 years. So with all of those things said, what makes a lot of these breakout stars and reality stars authentically stars and real is because the willingness to show the mess, most of the time at all costs, but sometimes it goes to their head. And you have to realize when you sign up for these shows, your life is open. You cannot just present a version of the mess. We want the mess, and we want to see you work through the mess. Because if it's just messy, there's just contention, just fighting, that gets old. And I don't want that. And it would be easy for me as a person in the audience. Granted, it's very entertaining for me, but if I don't see any, if it's inauthentic and there is no resolution, you can leave me out of that group chat. But if there is some resolution and we can see the work, yes, then let me see that. Because I think it would have been authentic if we had found out and if they would have shown that. Because you actually have to give permission to say this is real messy, and you grant your permission to actually show that. But then don't cry wolf, oh, there was nobody protecting. Well, then don't present it. Because if you don't present it, then your ass ain't getting paid. So if the real beef and the contention is with the lack of relationship, and the lack of relationship is because their own father is not protecting him. He wants them to gravel to them because that is his way to exert his masculinity and control. That, if that is authentically what the deal is, because we know Selena's going to tell it. She don't give a fuck. She ain't married to him anymore. I'm sure she's not getting alimony anymore. So if that is the tea, then let that be the tea. And then you also work through what has he done to change those ways, because you can't continue to operate in mess if there's no resolution and your kids are still hanging on with dear life and they're being made to feel like they're doing wrong because they're not feeding in and supporting the mess. That's what it is about. You can be together, but your kids don't actually have to take the mess. That's what most therapists would tell you. And that's what we need to see. What has your growth been since you divorced Selena? Are you different, or are you still the same messy individual? And if you still that same messy individual, lean into it. It films better. And granted, the messier, the better. But if you want to portray that you some just happy-go-lucky pigtail buffoon, but the undertone is a controlling, manipulative, abusive MFer, we need to see that growth. We need to see you get better. Because if you don't want to show the mess and you don't want to grow out of the mess, then you get paused. And you get sued when you go online and you disparage the producer of the show. And that's the other thing. Y'all be talking crazy. Like y'all know these people. I don't know these people. I only know and will comment on what I see. And I'm only going to continue to watch it if I find it entertaining. And if it's inauthentic and just too malicious and dark, I'm not going to watch. There you go. For me, crisis solved. And then I'm going to be unbothered by the rest. But I'm not going to go read some deeper meaning into things when I'm going to have to be really obtuse when it comes to these reality shows. I can only comment on what I'm actually being shown, what I'm actually reading and corroborated on some different sources. I'm not going to go down some rabbit hole of conjecture when I have no proof of that to facts. I'm not going to invent the facts. I got too many other things to do. And I think a lot of the listening audience will have a little bit better time if they actually just take a page out of that playbook. We need to stop conjecturing and putting more on these reality stars than they're willing to give us. If you're not willing to basically present the mess or leaning into the mess, that's one of the things I can say about Mia be lying on Real Housewives of Potomac. She seems to be kind of spinning right now, but she's authentic in her mess, and she's leaning into it and some of her poor decisions and her inability to remember lies can be hysterical at times. But what she doesn't need to be is, I don't think she needs to be judged. But as a member of the viewing audience, I'm not going to put some real personal judgment on people that I don't know. I'm not going to blame it on editing because I'm not in the cutting room when they're editing and producing these shows. I'm only going to comment and continue to watch shows that are entertaining because this is entertainment. But a lot of this is these people's real life. If they don't know how to separate, because this still is a relatively new genre, and it changes all the time. Being able to separate these sound bites of their life from the rest of their life, it is an art. There are very few people that survive multiple seasons. That's a testament, like Real Housewives of the OC and Beverly Hills and even Atlanta. Some of the real OGs, life's made of twists and turns. We only get to see 60 minutes of tapings that go after only 4 months, but they're 12 months in a year. How do you separate and come down off of the high of infamy after of the soundbite? How do you live outside of the sound bites is the question that maybe we should be asking these reality stars. And what kind of help can these production companies get them to live the other 8 months out of the year? And if those that actually have that balance, we're not going to have lawsuits. We're not going to have people quitting on your lives on YouTube. We're not going to have people running their mouths over at different bloggers when they don't get what they want because they act like petulant divas. I think a lot of those things and having that balance is going to make for this genre not to implode on itself. It's going to make it for more longevity in the future. It is obvious it can't keep operating like it has been. There is going to have to be some firm changes. I don't know if more lawsuits are going to be on the horizons or if we're going to have to see more shows go on a little bit longer hiatus to allow these people to reset, to live outside of the 4-month, 60-minute sound bites of their lives. You can take the girl out of the hood, but you can't take hood music out the girl. But I'm going to end this with a word, just as I started this podcast. Do or do not do. There is no try. And that's a word from Yoda. I hope I have conveyed just how much fun I have had in creating this podcast. I've got my mojo back. Just set your intention or reset your intention. It could be daily if necessary. Mine is peace. No mental dumping over here. If I'm acting like I'm not listening, I'm probably not. I'm not your therapist. I'm not a therapist. Keep the crazy to yourself, child. You do you and leave me be. The sooner you figure that ish out, the happy you will be. So this is what I want to convey in this podcast. And that wraps another of F.A.A.F.O has a fro. Join me next time as I throw shade and point out the shade and simply have fun. Y'all Have a great new year. Ah, 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 What? What, y'all? What? What?